Welcome, my beautiful vibration lifters. We have a special episode for you today. We have an extraordinary guest with us, Dr. Koni Scavella. Dr. Scavella is an international speaker, three times #1 best-selling author, and a business growth strategist renowned for helping CEOs and entrepreneurs achieve remarkable breakthroughs in both their personal and professional lives. She is an amazing person, and we're so excited to have her. Her expertise spans across various industries: healthcare, real estate, coaching, education, sports, finance, oil and gas, retail, ministry, hospitality, entertainment, you name it. So her global journey started in Munich, Germany, and she is multilingual, speaking 5 languages. But what we are most interested today is the pivotal moment in her life came when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer twice. Remarkably, she healed from both instances without medical intervention, and it was her profound near-death encounter following the second diagnosis that has shaped her mission today. In this episode, Dr. Scavella will share every detail of her near-death experience, the extraordinary encounters with beings of light on the other side, her initial refusal to return to Earth, and the profound lessons and gifts she's brought back with her. So welcome, Dr. Scavella. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you today?
I am phenomenal today, Kevin. How are you?
I'm amazing, excellent, and just so grateful that you are here. So, would you mind detailing a little bit about before your NDE, any pertinent information that you think is required, and then going into your NDE?
Sure, absolutely. So the experience is something that is transformative, and it's something that happened a while ago, but every time I talk about it or think about it, it feels like it was just a minute ago. So it's one of those things that it just doesn't go away.
Mm,
And how it started, I'm going to go a little bit earlier prior to the incident, and that was I was working very hard in a corporate job. I was rising really high in the company very fast. I was the fastest rising female executive in the company, setting all these records, traveling, and they say jump, I said how high, and it was awesome. And then one day I got again another promotion. And so I had to get a physical for that. And I went in on a late Friday night to get a physical. And I'm not even 30, I'm in my 20s. And the doctor says, "Oh, come see me afterwards." And at that point, in the old days where you go in and flick on a little switch and the lights go tss, 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 right, and then the
mm,
x-ray comes up and
mhm,
there's my x-ray with a grapefruit-sized tumor in my ovaries. And at that time, it was a 99.8% chance of dying. And that's really the diagnosis I got. And so I thought, wow, I'm never gonna even know what my 30th big birthday party is looking
mm,
like or anything. And I wasn't good with the news. I think a lot of people have had that diagnosis. I think every single person on the earth today knows somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, and it changes like everything. It like puts a stop on time in your world. And like you remember, I call it BC and AD, before cancer and after death. And
mm,
so at that time, I thought, well, I'm going in 6 months. So um, there's nothing I can do. Chemo surgery, nothing will help me anyway. So what I did at that time is I just decided that, well, I saved up a whole lot of money and I have very little time. And so all I'm going to do is live out my life really big. And I decided that I'm going to make sure that my last check bounces. And in 6 months, I'm going to go spend all my money as fast as I can on not just on me, but on other people. And I wanted to experience life with them. So I
mm,
never told anyone about my cancer, and nobody knew. I just said I'm taking a little break because I work so hard and I want to go on some trips around the world and I want to take you and you and you and you. And so I took everybody on their, you know, favorite trip. And as I did that, I noticed I started to get better and better.
Mm.
And then I realized, well, I don't feel like I'm dying. And so I started looking into ways to heal. And ultimately, I healed myself of that terminal cancer diagnosis and never had any chemo, radiation, anything. And so it was all, I call it the pharmacy of the mind, and
Mm.
really working on different ways of healing my body.
Mm.
So I survived that, and life goes on. I just wish I didn't spend all my money, but
Wow.
so um and then about 3 years later, I start getting sick again, and this time it's worse, and it doesn't feel like the same thing, but my body starts rapidly declining, and my immune system, really started shutting down. um, I became very weak. I started becoming dyslexic. I could no longer dream in color, and I was very smart, and all of a sudden I felt really dumb, like I couldn't think right. So there were all these strange things that were happening, and different doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I tried all kinds of modalities. I thought, hey, if I can heal myself before, why can't I do it again? And so I did the same things. And, the way I thought, the way I ate, the people I associated with, everything that worked before, it wasn't working this time. And it was really hard. And my body was rapidly getting weaker and weaker. And this time it was incredibly painful. Like I was just in constant pain. And towards the end, I was just able to lay in bed. That was about it. And I called it doing laps. So for me to go from my bed to the bathroom, maybe around 12 feet, from the master bedroom to the master bath. But it took me hours just
Mm.
to get there, just slowly walk and hold on to the wall, and then, finally sit down. And then I like, oh God, now I gotta go back. I could not figure out why my body wasn't cooperating, and it was essentially eating me up from the inside out. And I was just gray and ashen and like
Mm.
bony, lost so much weight, but yet I was all swollen in certain places, and it was a physical mess. And um, it was just that over and over again. Like I wake up in the morning and, oh, this is what my day is going to look like. And
Mm.
it's another 12 hours of this and another 12 hours of this, or 15 or whatever. And I remember that it was after one lap. Um, and I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and then I just kind of fell back on the bed. And I had a ceiling that had these rafter beams on it, and it's kind of a peak ceiling with rafters on it. I remember looking up on that, and I was like, huh. I said, well, I just thought, well, I think I'm done.
Mm.
I think I'm done. And that didn't mean I'm gonna kill myself or anything like that. I just knew there was no fight left. And I did not know what was coming next. I just didn't see anything other than this continuing on forever. And I'm like, huh, I never thought about what does that mean that you're done? And I thought, well, should I be done? Is this it? Is this how it ends? And then I hear this voice, like a booming microphone or megaphone in the room, which to me is God's voice. And it was, are you sure?
Mm.
And um, so I always grew up with a really close relationship with God. I always felt angels around me, and
Mm.
not based on my Catholic upbringing, but just, I had a really wonderful mother, and we just had a wonderful, incredible life. And so I didn't play with Barbies or anything like that. I remember literally seeing angels, and those were like my
Oh,
playmates.
wow.
So I always thought growing up that God was actually my father, that there's this other man around, but he was my father. So that
Wow.
was my perception growing up.
Mm.
And and I would always talk to God. And so when I heard that, are you sure? I knew that voice. I was like, wow. that's that's a good question. I thought, am I done? And what would that mean? And I thought, well, I guess, I've had a great life. I've done everything, right? The love of my life, great family. I've made tons of money. It's super successful. I had all the fame, everything that people strive for, by the time they're 70 or 80. And I had it. And I thought, well, I guess I've done it all. And and I didn't have any fear or anything like that. I just thought I'm good. Like, I kind of checked all the boxes. And then I just said, yeah, I'm done. And then boom, I was literally out of my body. As
Mm.
soon as I said, yes, I'm done, I was outside of it. And I had this crushing feeling like an elephant sitting on my chest like all the time, like I'm just trying to get breath, right?
Mhm.
And I could breathe and I was
Mm.
so light and I felt good and I could move and everything was great. And I thought, oh, I feel good now. And um I remember that I lived in a townhouse at the time and so it was like two units. And then I noticed I'm kind of looking down and there's my neighbor John, who was like the perfect specimen of a human being. And he's going over to his chest of drawers and he's pulling out a pair of blue shorts and he puts those on because he's going to go running. He runs every day for 5 miles. And I thought, oh, there's John. And then I, noticed up the street on Colorado Boulevard that my mailman was turning in. My dog is going to start barking and going crazy. And so I'm seeing all this. I don't realize that I'm seeing it from outside of my body. It's just a scene that I'm watching.
Mhm.
Um, and I look and then there's John, perfect specimen. And then although I was kept looking at John, there was this attraction to look in the other side of the townhouse. And I was like, what is that? And but I kept watching John get ready. And then I was like, well, what is over there? And so then I got really close to the other side of the townhouse and looked in, and there's this woman in bed. And I thought, huh, is she alive? She's not even moving. And I'm, looking, but I'm looking at John and then I'm looking at her and I get really close and it's just like, oh my God, that's me. And
Wow.
it was really shocking because we're never able to actually see what we look like,
Mm.
right? We see a
Mhm.
reflection, but we don't see ourselves.
Mhm.
And all I saw was this like gray, ashen, sickly body that looks like it should have been in a third world country,
Mm.
and not moving at all. And I was just fascinated by that. And but I didn't understand really what was going on. It's just I didn't quite get that's me. And if that's me, then who's me?
Mhm.
Who's thinking all this? Who's this observer watching it all? And so this is happening and at the same time, and I see my dog starting to go nuts because the mailman is coming, and I start to float up higher, kind of like a really slow release helium balloon, right? You let go of the string and it starts to go higher, and then I can see the Denver Stadium and downtown, and I can see all these things the higher I go.
Do you
And
do
yeah,
you remember being aware of your body at this time? Like, did you have hands and feet, and
yeah,
did you think about that?
it's a great question. There wasn't an awareness of the physical body.
Okay.
Um, it was just total freedom. It was like,
Mm.
it's so cool, right? Just from laying underneath an elephant, and then all of a sudden, can
Yes,
breathe,
yes.
right?
Hmm.
And I was just vibrant. I was like the most alive I've ever felt. It felt like
Wow.
pure energy. And but I didn't like look at me like, oh, there's my hand and stuff.
Right. Okay.
It just wasn't even a concept. It was me seeing the scene, but I had no concern over who I was.
Mm.
And so um so I'm floating and floating and I'm seeing all this stuff, the daily life. I could see farther and farther, which is interesting because now today, when I work, I look at businesses and I do the same thing. I literally like pull
Mm.
myself up and I can see like the whole landscape of where a business is going, just like I could see the whole landscape there. Um, and so I thought, this is fascinating, kind of like, isn't this fun? Like going up in a hot air balloon or something. And then it switched, and all of a sudden I'm what I call in the tunnel. And so now I have kind of left Earth, if you will. And now I'm quickly moving in a tunnel. When I go in the tunnel, it's pure darkness and there is no light whatsoever, but I'm going at an incredible velocity. I know I'm going really, really fast and I don't know which direction. And like you asked me, is it me? Is it me as a body? No, there's just a concept of um, really high speed.
Mm.
It's pure darkness. It's like it felt like if you've seen like in LA or something, they have those big aqueduct tunnels, those pipes,
Mhm.
like this huge pipe, it felt this sense that I wasn't just open air. That's why I say it felt like a tunnel, and I knew I was going in a certain direction very, very fast. Um, and it felt like I was going for quite a while. I say a long time, but I don't know relatively what a long time is.
Mm.
And so this goes on for a while, and then I have a thought of, I wonder how long this goes on, was the only thought. And as soon as I had that thought, then I saw a little tiny, tiny speck of light. So in all that darkness, there's a little tiny bit of light. And as I kept going, then the light got brighter and brighter and bigger and bigger. And then I sort of came to a stop. And it was like I was at the mouth of this tunnel on the tunnel side. And it's like I'm standing there. And I'll say like I'm standing, I'm sitting, but that's
Mhm.
what it feels like. But
Mm.
I never like looked at a
Right.
physical body.
Mhm.
And so I'm standing there, and then the light actually became, instead of one big light, it became three. So there was like a big center light and then two on the side that were a little smaller. Not really much dimmer, but just smaller. And and it was awesome. It was just this feeling of um it's hard to describe because it's very ineffable, but it's this feeling of complete overwhelming love, unconditional love, just indescribable, and this comfort of familiarity and acceptance and oneness. And um, there is no distinction between me and the light, right? And so as I walked through from the tunnel into the other side, I equate the beings of light to being God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
And so I come through and I don't know where I am or what is happening. And what was amazing is that I had no fear. Um, I had no thought of everything that I left behind. I just felt complete bliss and joy and love. And so I started asking questions. That's my nature. I've always been a researcher, a questioner. I'm one of those terrible 2-year-olds that, okay, enough, Connie, stop asking questions, right? But it
Mhm.
never stopped to this day. And so I'm like, where am I? And what is this? And who are you? And all of these questions. But I wasn't actually talking. Um, Not like I'm talking aloud and they're answering. It was just the communication of no mind, right? And I would have a thought and it would go out and their answer would come back to me. And then from that, then I'd have another question and it would come back. And it was just this constant back and forth, right? And it wasn't like I say something and that it was just a continual flow, right?
Mm.
um, again, that sense of no separation. And
Hmm.
so anything I wanted to ask, it was answered instantly. And even almost as I'm saying it, I know the answer. It's hard to describe, right? Because it's all happening at once.
Hmm.
And so my curious mind the whole time is like, oh, I want to know this. And the more I know, the more I realize I can answer better and higher questions, right? Because I have more and more knowledge in me. It's really fascinating. Um, so we're all there, and then they start walking. And again, I use that term metaphorically. So we
Hmm.
start going this way. And I want to explain for people who've had a near-death experience or have listened to these things that there are different stages that people have.
Hmm.
Um, some people have an experience that they see a light and they have an answer, and then some people go to the tunnel or through the tunnel. Some people get to the other side. A lot of people say they see all kinds of colors um, and people that they know, like people who've passed before. Um, I didn't meet any people or pets that have passed before. The only beings I encountered were the beings of light. And I just want to make that distinction because people always say, did someone tell you to go back or whatever? But
Right.
uh, I didn't have any of that. So the only ones were those three beings.
Mm.
And so we start going and I'm following, and then two break off. God and the Holy Spirit break off, and I'm walking with Jesus. We're going through, and at this point, there's all these. It's it becomes almost like clouds or fog um, that we're walking in, and yet we're not walking on ground. We're just moving.
Hmm.
So we're going and following, and for again walking for a while, and then I have the thought, I wonder where we're going. And then right there out of nowhere appears a big well, like a water well,
Hmm.
and it's this kind of gray brick well. And it um so Jesus goes up and sits down on the lip of it on the side and kind of sits sideways and looks at me and looks at the seat and looks at me and at the seat. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to sit down here. Okay, I get it. Um, and so I sit down, we're kind of almost like knee to knee facing each other, and I'm just loving this. Like this
Yeah.
is, they say, oh, I died, I went to heaven. This is it because of all the pain I went through physically beforehand. And then, and life is just painful, right? It's
Hmm.
hard. And everyone's had their tragedies and their losses and all this stuff. And yet this feeling of unbridled bliss is indescribable. And I'm just, like I can do this forever.
Wow. Do you
And
remember what it looked like outside of the well? Was it just darkness and then this well, or was it?
no, it was just light.
Okay.
At this point, there was no other things. There are other things that I experienced afterwards. Um, and there wasn't really any color, sort of like
Mm.
a gray fog, like
Mm.
about uh 2.5, 3 feet, like
Okay.
coming up, usually fog is coming down, but this it's
Right.
coming up almost like clouds or something. And then as we walked, and then as soon as I thought, I wonder where we're going, and then that kind of cleared a bit, and then there was the well.
I see.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Jesus and loving this moment, right? I'm just like, wonderful. And I'm describing this as he said, or did this, right? But yeah, there's again this the whole time this communication of no mind. So he leans back and looks in the well, and then looks at me, and I'm just looking at him like it's like a schoolgirl in love, right? and and then looks in it again and looks at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should look in the well. And it's filled to the top with water. And I said, okay, well, let me look in. And I look in and I see all these little scenes, like like doll scenes or not cartoons, or I don't know what it is, but these 20, 30 different scenes of people interacting and doing different things. Um, Almost like if you're watching a movie and you see like there's a movie and it's like apartment or something and you can see in the different rooms, you know? So
Mhm.
I'm kind of looking down and I see all these scenes going on, and I thought, okay. I look back at him and he looks back in. Okay, I better look again. So I look in closer and I realized, oh my gosh, that's me in all of those scenes. And all the scenes are completely different. And so I'm like, huh. And as I start to kind of get pulled in, I look down and it's it's awful. It's
Mm.
me um being mean to other people in this scene. And um I'm hurtful and I'm, saying unkind things, and these people are being hurt by me. And I'm just like, oh gosh, I don't want to, sort of like, oh, don't look, I'm really loving, but don't look at that thing down there. And I see how horrible I am to these people in this one scene. It's like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing that. It's just total humiliation and guilt and embarrassment. And I don't want to look up because how can I, right? How do I have this amazing love right here, and then I'm not being that loving to somebody else there? And I don't want to look up, and he just like keeps looking at me, and finally I look up, feeling like I'm going to be a punished child, and he says, "It's okay. You're forgiven, and I love you."
Mm.
And I'm just like, oh, um, and just the contrast of I shouldn't be here, and then it's gone, it's taken away, and I'm loved. And I just feel such relief and joy again. And then he looks down over the over the well again and looks at me like, gotta look again. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to look again. And I have to. And so I look again at a different scene. And this time I'm even worse and more awful and more uh, cruel. And it just tears me up because of the contrast of love on one side and then the hatred, venom I'm spewing on the other. It doesn't feel like me at all, but I'm doing it and I know that's me. And and then the person that I'm cruel to leaves, and then I see where they go, and then they are just as mean to the next person they encounter. And and then I start feeling the hatred of what I did to that person layered on top of how the person they're mean to felt. And so I feel like all the weight of that cruelty um, that sprang from me. And I can't look up. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get out of this one. And finally, I look up and, like right in my eyes, and it's just, it's okay. You're forgiven. And I
Uh,
love you.
mm.
I just like, I'm thinking, thank goodness. Now we can go. No, to look again. Um, and every time I have to look, it's worse because now I feel the pain of the next person. and the person that they hurt, and then they go off and hurt more people, and then more people get hurt. And every time I feel that weight of that cruelty on me again and again and again. And um, so now I've got 4 or 5 times this burden, and I sit up and I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not worthy here. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I'm not going to stay. And again, he says, it's okay. You're forgiven and I love you.
Wow.
Good. Okay. We're done. I have to go through all of those scenes
Wow.
again and again. And every time I withheld love from somebody else, it just ripped my soul apart
Mm.
because that's what I chose to do. And yet at the same time, I'm told I'm forgiven and I'm loved, which is all that I want, is I just want to be loved. Um, so that was the hardest, worst experience of my life, going through that, knowing that I'm perfectly loved. And then I did that and I withheld love. And every one of those scenes where I withheld love, I had to look at. And then finally, at some point, he just wiped them out. And I didn't have to keep going and looking at it. And then we could get up and go. So that was the first experience of what I would call like a life review.
Mm.
And if you get that far in a near-death experience, you will go through that. But everybody has that
Mm.
at some
Mm.
point, and I don't wish it on anybody. It's
Mm.
it's unbearable, honestly. Um,
Mm.
and when I hear now, or if I see people that are just really, really cruel, intentionally or not, or could be based on their own circumstances or whatever. Um, and sometimes I want to fight it back and say, get into it right
Mm.
back with them.
Right.
And I don't ever want to face
Mm.
that well again. And I just think, well, you talk about karma and other things, or, everybody's hair on their head is counted or whatever. But I just think, well, I don't want their well.
Mm.
I don't want to go through again what they're going to have to go through, and everyone will have to go through it, and I'll tear you open. And so it's just a reminder that you don't have to go there. But it was all the times in my life when I withheld love, and that was always because I didn't have love, right?
Mm.
I
Mm.
wasn't pouring out love to those people in those scenes. And then they were doing the same thing to everybody they met. And it is that ripple effect.
Mm.
And so it's one of the most important things for me being back here is to let people know that you're always loved. And it's
Mm.
okay. Whatever you do, it's okay. You're forgiven, right? And if you were
Mhm.
forgiven, you wouldn't keep harboring these feelings of um, hatred or envy or fear or anger if you were just loved, if you knew that you were loved.
Wow.
Um, and then when you really know it, when it's in you, that you're 100% forgiven, you're not a bad person, you're not some sinner or anything, but you are pure love. And when you get that, the slate was wiped clean. So it was a cool thing. But I
Wow.
think of that always because I just want people to understand that we really are loved.
Right. And that would you say it's our mission in life to love and to, especially in instances that are difficult to love? Did you feel like did they show you those instances in your life too, where you were showing love and the way that affected the earth as well?
Not in that way. So I probably look at it a bit differently
Mm.
in that I don't feel like my mission is to love, because um, I am love.
Mm.
So It's not about doing, because that actually is part of a definition of that separation. But
Mm,
what I had to do was release anything that is not me, of me, right? And anything that is not of love, so that I can just be love. I don't have to do love. I don't have to love people. And I have to be love. If I am love and the overflowing, ebullience everywhere, your cup runneth over. That's all I have to be, is I have to focus on the one thing that I am, which is pure love. And if I'm doing anything that is not pure love, then I'm not being me and I'm not serving anybody. And if everybody understood that you're forgiven and that you are loved, that's all you really want, is to be pure love, then don't be anything else, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
so we don't have to quote um, love on people. I just have to be love around people. And if everybody knows that they're being love, we don't have to do it, right?
mm, mhm,
Because it's not my that's not my domain to do that. But when I am feeling pure love, I'm naturally loving the world.
mhm,
Um, but I don't have to try. So I like to see that everybody is self-responsible for their own love. Excavate it, uncover it, whatever's covering it up. Might not be in this lifetime that they're in, but it might be in the next one or the next one. So we all bring with us stuff to heal. And that's, the faster you can understand that, the less times you have to go around on this
mhm.
purgatorial
Oh,
merry-go-round.
right.
And then you discover, um, wow, I was this all along. Why am I trying to do anything? I already have
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's just when I hear you say that, I wonder what are the definitions of being that. Like, I guess again, when I say that, then I think about, oh, you're separating yourself again from the love. But I feel like people are going to want to know, because I would love to be in that being of love. I feel like that is like the most important thing, is just what tools, or what does that feel like? Does that mean being kind to everyone? Does it mean turning the other cheek, like Jesus said, or which I really do believe that's such a powerful lesson right there, because it's
Mhm.
like even despite your violent behavior, I still love you. Here, give me more pain, or give me more of your ire, but and I still have love. Like, so a lot of people would probably argue that no, you don't want people to walk all over you, and that does it mean the same thing, or is there anything to grasp with those two things? Are they mutually exclusive, or does that make
Huge,
sense?
yeah, huge distinction, and um, huge painful lesson for me after the fact, right? Because I always say the girl that went in the tunnel is not the same being that came out. And um, I we all believe people are just like we are, right?
Mm, mhm,
And I came out filled with love and unconditional love. And if you're familiar with David Hawkins' work and his map of consciousness and things like that, where he calibrates energy levels and where people are. So a near-death experience calibrates on the scale of unconditional love, 540 and above. And but most people are, you know, down at different levels. And so um, being at a level of unconditional love all the time is like 0.4% of society.
mhm,
So all at that point, what happens is I lost my ego. Okay. That's really the definition of that dying, right? Um,
mm,
Dying to the self. So what is left on the other side of the tunnel is my ego. And so if you don't have an ego, you don't have duality, right? So
mm,
there's not trying to do or be love or anything else. You're just it's just beingness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but when you come back on the other side, where the world is very dualistic, and all I was is pure love, I was also one of the most ignorant, gullible people, on the planet, because I thought everybody is like this. And I was constantly taken and um, lied to and abused, and helping people that just, would suck things, the money out of me, right? Or whatever. Um, so there's being love and being intelligent and not gullible or ignorant. And it's about content and context. So in the context of a dualistic world, to come in very naive and thinking, oh, I'm so pure love and everything is going to work and I'm throwing daisies out of a basket, that is not it. You have to understand the context of where you are, and understand that people are evolving and they are where they are. And I look at it like a clock, right? And like at 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And going around in a circle. And when we're born, imagine if you're born at quote midnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And if I think of what is my purpose and my mission is to return to my oneness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at our purpose in life, is you return to your oneness. But as you're going around this clock, right? If you're born at 1 or 2 in the morning, it's pretty dark at night then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are your darker times, and you're not very filled with light. And as you go around, right, the day gets brighter and brighter and brighter. So I look at that evolving process as a clock. And when I see people that are like I was in the well, I say to myself, um, they're at 2 o'clock, they're at 2 a.m., they're still dark, right? They haven't become their full light. And so I don't say that one is good or one is bad. It's just a different time of day, right? It's like if you put the cake batter in the oven, and if you take it out at 5 minutes, it's not set yet, right? It
Right.
doesn't mean it's a bad cake. You don't throw it out. It just hasn't gone through the whole process to be, ready to eat. So that's how I look at people, is that they're just at different points of being evolved, and coming to their oneness, to the recognition of their oneness, and that oneness is pure love. Um, so that's how I look at it without judgment.
I
Does that
see.
make sense?
That does make sense. Yes. So everyone having is on a spectrum. Everyone's is growing at their own rate, and you don't want everyone has their own path back to the oneness. And I think that's an important thing to understand, because it helps you not judge other people, and it helps you to realize that we are all going back to the same destination. However, somebody might get there,
Yeah.
So um, I think someone once put it to me as we're all actors in a way playing this role, and after the movie or the play is over, we realize, oh, you were just playing this role during this life. So you're not really that person. So no one is really kind of going to be harshly judged, except for maybe they judge themselves. Or I've heard about the harshest judgment is probably comes from yourself when you're going through the life review, when you're seeing those things happening. And so after that happened, was it, did you just come back, or was there more scenes on the other side that you
Yeah.
had?
So that was the first part of really looking at um, all of my behaviors and things and that I did, that kept me really blocked here, right? And
Mm,
seeing that duality of looking in the well and then looking in Jesus's eyes. And that's that duality that I think we all need to understand, um, that we're dealing with down here, right?
mm,
Because of our ego. And not to make the ego the bad thing, right? But that is what's still with us, and that is the part of us that seeks safety and is fearful and wants to protect us. But it also doesn't want us to recognize that it is not sovereign, and that
mm,
God, Holy Spirit, whatever word works for people. Because I know I say the word God, Some people say Lord or the divine. Some people say Mother Nature or the universe or whatever it is that your deity is, whatever is divine to you. Just use that word. Don't let my words trip you up, but
Hmm.
that which, you're devoted to. So, um, so I went through that and then we came back and then that's when I came sort of more into society. It's sort of like a place to cross through, that t um what you call it, the well experience,
Well,
right?
hmm.
Um, that's sort of like you have to cross through that, and
Mm.
then you can go in. And then I went in and into this amazing place, and where all these incredible colors and things were that were just magnificent and grand. And then they had me go into this library, and it was the exact library I've always wanted in my home, the really tall ceilings and then the ladders on wheels
Yeah.
and just leather books everywhere.
Wow.
And being a researcher, I was like, oh, now I really died. I went to heaven, right?
Hmm.
And I go in there and it's just sort of like, here you go, a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh, and there's this big podium there in the front, and so I get all these books, and then I start reading them, and I could speed read, and I could just absorb these. I go to all these books, and everything just came in me, right? And the knowledge just was I was a sponge, and there was nothing I didn't understand. So it's like the holy archives, if you will,
Hmm.
everything and anything that would possibly ever happen that you want to know about, I was learning. And then I stood up for another book. I'm like, what do I want to do now? And again, there was no concept of time, so I didn't know, okay, I'm going to be here for an hour or something. I just thought this is it. Every place I was when I was pure love, I would just like, this is it. This is now. And I stood up and I remember like putting my finger, walking along, looking at the books and the titles and touching the titles as I'm walking along. And every book I touched, as soon as I touched the binding of it, then everything that was in that book was in my head. And I knew everything that was there. And I didn't even have to take them down anymore and read them. I could just touch everything and all the knowledge was within me. I was like, okay, this is amazing. Um, and again, I have no idea how long this went on, but it was all just in the moment. I literally could have been there for eternity and
Wow.
once been bored, right? It's pure love, pure knowledge. And this is where I noticed that as soon as I thought something, um, it would it would appear or I would be there. I'd have a knowledge of something or another civilization or a continent or whatever. I'm like, I wonder what it's like to be there. And then I would be there. While I'm still there in the Holy Archives, reading and touching books, but I'm also in that place wherever I'm thinking. And
Mm.
so I was able to be in multiple places at once, wherever I wanted to. Anytime I thought something, it would appear, I would be there. So that was really cool.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. And so you did have an awareness of your body there. You had your finger going across the books. So
So
that's
I
in that.
say that, yeah, I say that
But
metaphorically to
okay.
describe it. But it wasn't like I literally
Right.
saw it the whole time. I wasn't wearing clothes. I knew in the tunnel that I wasn't aware of wearing clothes or anything.
Mhm.
I was also a being of light,
Ah,
but I was still different from them. Um, and I had awareness of my, I was my own identity.
mm,
Um, but it wasn't like I was wearing clothes or anything.
mhm,
And yet, I could, like, if I would go somewhere, I could see a scene,
mhm.
uh, but it was never like I really saw me physically.
Do you feel like you had your same personality and your same kind of humor and when you're in that state?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good parts of me were all there.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm generally like a perpetual 8-year-old, and I'm always laughing and curious, and so all that was there. So
Oh.
I didn't become like a, I don't know, a cipher or something, and just be a boring automaton
Hmm.
AI kind of a thing. It was still me,
Hmm.
but I wasn't um embodied in my ego. So it
Right.
wasn't the body, the physical body that
Hmm.
was there. It was just me without an ego, just happy and joyful, and um, yeah.
Great.
So unlimited. So that
Awesome.
was, yeah, that was awesome. And then the next thing was that they called me into this room and um, said that okay, it's like, okay, it's time to go. I thought, okay, I'm gonna go to another room, like another, you know, part of this fun um place. And they say it was like, okay, great. Thanks for stopping by and gotta go back. And I was speechless. I was like, what do you mean I have to go? Um, and I thought I had done something wrong, like I wasn't good enough to be there, and I was just crushed, right? And I was like, no, 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 I can't go back. There's no way I can't do this. I just don't ever want to go back. I want to be here. This is where I'm good. I can do this. I can help you guys so much more here
Mhm.
than down there. They're like, nope, nope, it's time to go back. This isn't permanent. This wasn't meant to be permanent. And I'm arguing and fighting and crying, and I'm like a 2-year-old stomping my feet. And I'm like, no, I'm not going back. And then I said, just I can prove it to you, right? So my personality was still there. I can prove it to you. Just give me some time, give me an hour, and I'll show you exactly why I should stay. And it was, saying it now, it's comical, but it was like, okay, we'll give you an hour and you can then tell us. And if you can convince us that you can stay, you can stay. I'm like, cool. And I'm super stoked because, like, hey, I have this infinite knowledge now. Like, my brain, I was smart before, but now it's off the chain. And I have the Holy Archives. So I used to give great presentations. I know PowerPoint like nobody's business. And so I'm like ready. I'm in there. I'm diving in. I'm putting together the world's best presentation on why I should stay. I'm so confident that I'm gonna stay. Um, and then they're like, okay, it's time. And so I have to go in this other room, and they're all before me, like at a table, and and I present, and I'm, doing all this um presentation magic, and it's like they're just placating me and listening and nodding and and I thought for sure I nailed it. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and send you back now. I'm just no, this
Oh.
is the best one of my life. Um, and so no, I don't get to stay. And I'm still bawling, and I'm just I literally beside myself. I can't catch my breath. I just like, no, it's like is so opposite, right? And the thought of leaving this kind of unconditional love is the terror that I had, like, oh God, I have to go back there. Like I couldn't imagine. It's like I'm just gonna be thrown into fire. So um then the two on the side leave, Jesus and the Holy Spirit leave, and then it's just me with God, and he takes me into this room, and it's like a big banquet table, and it's really long. It's like 18 feet long, and he's on one side and I'm on the other side, and we're just talking and walking. And on top of this table is like an architectural um, city. It's like the white foam core, if you know what I mean. And it builds up, this whole city is built out. and it's all in this white foam core. And he's walking and talking, and we're looking at this thing. It looks kind of familiar. I don't know what city it is or what kind of layout it is, but it's very ornate. And we're walking down, and then he's telling me that this is my life of what I had lived so far and all these scenes and all these experiences I had. And then I realized, wow, it's like where I was all the time. And then we come to this point, and it's like sort of line where it's no longer white and then it's full color. And the full color part is my future. And so now we're walking through, and he's telling me what's going to happen when I go back and all the people I'm going to meet and the things I need to do and everything. And it's all laid out. And as we keep walking, he says, okay, and this is where you don't want to do this, and you don't want to go this way. You want to do this, and this is the, everything that I'm supposed to do as far as my purpose and what I need to do. So, um, and then I'm as I'm looking as he's talking, um, and then as I look up, because we're walking a lot, and every time I look up, the farther I look, it just keeps forming, right? And so it's not like at the end of the table, it's a
Mm.
continuous thing. And so everything I want to know about my future and where I'm going, what I should do, is all laid out. And so it just brought so much peace, right? To know that I don't have to fear and wonder or worry. It's all right there. Um, and then in another split second, when I understood that, then we're all back at the tunnel, at the lip of the tunnel. And it's like, a parent saying goodbye to their
Mm.
college student.
Mm.
And um, and I'm still just bawling. I'm like, I don't want to go. Can I still, I'm still trying, still angry
Mm.
to get to stay. And there's no reaction. It's like, love you, but bye. Um, so then it was like, why they asked me, why is it that you have such resistance to go? What is it that makes you afraid to go back? And I said, well, I know when I go back, I will never have the kind of love there that I have here. And I can't imagine having to live all that without this kind of love. Um, and then the last thing they said was, God said to me, well, um, you'll know you'll know along the way. And I didn't know what that meant because instantly I was already back in the tunnel. And I knew I was going back. Even though you can't see direction, I could just, you can't feel wind in your hair or anything. It was all dark again, but I knew I was going away from the light. I never looked back, but I just kept going, and then it was all dark. It felt longer going back than it did getting there. And then um, again, I thought, I wonder um, how much longer it is. And all of a sudden it stops. I stop. It was like I was standing up in this tunnel, and it was pitch dark. And um, then I felt fear. It was the first time I felt fear because I didn't know. And I wasn't moving. And I started to panic because I didn't feel that connection and that love anymore.
Mm.
And and um, and then all of a sudden I hear footsteps, um, like footsteps walking on concrete, which of course I'm in a tunnel of space.
Mhm.
Um, and and then I'm like, you can tell by the way they're walking, it's like a man's footsteps, and they're coming towards me and they're getting closer. And so I'm even more fearful. And then they're really close to me, and then like within a couple of feet of me, and then all of a sudden, um, the man says, um, "Is that you?" And then I felt instant peace again and the same kind of love. And I thought, well, that's the same feeling I had on the other side, but um, I'm halfway in between and I don't know what to say. And then I still can't see anything. And then he keeps walking towards me, and it's like, I don't know, like 6 inches from my face. And this man is standing in front of me with this, like, kind of like a London fog coat on,
Mm.
um, and dress shoes, and like walking on concrete. So I could hear that. And he's standing in front of me, and I could see his face perfectly. And he says, "Is that you?" And he goes, um, "I found you." He's like, "Wait for me. Just wait for me." And all I could do is think, I'm gonna lose this memory. So I just thought, just at least remember the eyes, just remember the eyes. Because I could feel that same presence,
Mhm.
but I thought I'm gonna not know that, remember this. And so I thought, just keep remembering those eyes, and remember those green eyes. And then all of a sudden I'm gone and I'm going back. Um, and then I come through the tunnel and I literally come in and plop down into my gray, decrepit body,
Mm.
waiting for me on the bed. Um, and that was funny because I like plop into my body and I'm I like can't breathe. I'm like, I can't breathe, I can't talk.
No.
Um and then I hear this voice that says, flip around. So it's like I went in my body backwards. Um, and I'm like,
Wow.
what? And I hear this flip around. So it felt like I had a turtleneck over my face. And
Mm.
then I'm like, oh. And so I like spiritually flip around, and then I'm aligned right back. So I'm not breathing out the back of my head. And then I can breathe, and then I'm back in
Wow.
my body. And I was like, well, what was that?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so interesting. Wow.
it's yeah, it's a lot to go through. It takes a while to get through it all, but the three, different areas of the well, and um the library, and then the banquet table of um seeing what's coming
Right.
were very, very powerful for me.
Wow. Wow. That's an incredible story. That's so funny that you came back backwards and your
No.
body had this turn. That's very telling about the separation between our soul and our bodies and how these are like suits that we're wearing, you know.
Exactly.
That's so
Yeah.
mm. And then did you come back with any gifts? I hear often in NDEs people come back with, more awareness, psychic abilities. Anything like that happen for you?
Yeah. Obviously I had no idea what it was when I came back. Um, it was nighttime, and when this happened, it was in the day, in the late afternoon. So
Okay.
it was a time in the evening, so you needed lights. And I didn't need lights when I left. So when I came back, obviously I just kind of sat there for a minute, um, and knew something happened. I had no place to put what happened, right? Because I've never
Mm,
heard of a near-death experience at that point. And so the first thing that happened was then I um, was able to sit up in my bed, and then I reached for the light and turned it on, and it was like somebody just threw gasoline in my eyes,
mm,
because I couldn't handle artificial light after being with the beings of light. And so like it was awful. And so first thing is I couldn't be in artificial light, and so I had to dig through my house and find candles. So for years at night I could only light candles. Um, and some other gifts would be that sometimes I would walk like we walked towards the well, where we walked like 18 inches off the ground, and I would be walking sometimes with my friends and stuff. And I would do it all the time alone. I would literally be walking like 18 inches off the ground. I'd just be kind of gliding midair.
wow.
And then sometimes I remember walking with my friends and I'd get back into the state of bliss and I'd start rising up and then I'd realize I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. And I'd like have to
Oh,
ground
wow.
myself. Um,
Literally floating across the ground.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Um, and the I found one of the things that they told me was, who was going to be able to heal my body. So I knew I was going to heal. Um, it's just that the body is slower than consciousness, right? So I came in healed, but the body was still, sick. And so they said there's a doctor and he lives, his office is 3 blocks from your house. And he's the one to heal you. And so I remember sitting up in the bed and pushing up on the bed, and my hand hit a little nickel magazine. I don't know if you know what those are, little old advertisement newspaper thingies, and I never had one, but it was there on my bed, and I'm flipping through it, and there's an ad with the doctor that says, "Hey, if you have these and these conditions, you can come in and take this test and we can heal you." So I don't know where that magazine came from, but it was sitting there on my bed when I got back.
Wow.
And so I thought that might be me. And I called that doctor and they got me in. And so they were literally 3 blocks from my house. And I parked in the garage and I was going in the garage. This woman cut me off and she wanted to get in there first.
Mm.
And, I'm all bliss. And so I'm like, go ahead. And then she like dove into this parking spot before me. I'm like, go ahead. And then she's running up the stairs just right before me, and she's clearly in a hurry and frazzled. And she runs up, and then I start to go up the stairs, and I grab the railing, apparently right where she grabbed it. And as soon as I did, her whole life flashed before my eyes, and I could see everything that she was going through. And I saw her whole morning and her fight with her boyfriend and all this stuff. And it just gave me like a glimpse of everything that she was going through. And I'm like, well, no wonder she was behaving that way. And that was the first time I experienced that. If I touch something that somebody else touched, I can see their life experience. And so I was in the dentist's office, and um, guess who was my dental hygienist? It's the girl that
It
went
was,
up the stairs.
oh my gosh. No way.
And so I'm still new to all this, and I don't know, like, what was that? And so I'm just talking to her, and I find out about her morning. I'm like, did you have a fight with your boyfriend this morning about this and this and this? And she just looked at me, and I was like, oh, and I just said, oh, it's gonna be okay, and he
Mm,
didn't mean it, and all this stuff. And so that was another thing. I could read people, so I could see things that were coming up in the future. The other thing is how I saw people. So the whole reason I'm back here is to have people understand that they're loved,
mm,
and that is the most important thing, and that they are loved. But I see people like I was, like a being of light, and so um, it's kind of like Star Trek. If you remember Star Trek and Beam Me Up, Scotty, and they get all lit up. Well, it's like that. They're like these. It's like Swiss cheese,
mhm,
and with the holes in it. And when I meet someone, that's what I see is this kind of glowy Swiss cheese, and the holes are all the places where they're lacking love in
mm,
their life. And sometimes it's little holes, sometimes it's big holes, sometimes it's big holes with crispy brown edges around it, and it's really dried out. And so when I see that, it gives me pause to just be loving and
mm,
not like do anything, but I can be love, right? And let
mhm,
it pour over into them. Um, and so it becomes a very attracting thing. A lot of people who have near-death experiences, they find that um, a lot of times people are extremely attracted to them because if they are exhibiting a lot of love without ego is just magnetic.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's always the right person.
Right.
Uh, so, um, so those are some of the gifts, and they come and they go, and you can't be attached to them. Um, Another thing is I can't be around electronics for years. Anything electronic, my energy would wipe it out. Um, I still have an amazing watch collection, and none of them work. Um, so. Um, it's electronics are also a symbol for me. So if I'm not doing well physically for some reason or start to wear out, because it's very taxing, right? Being in a dualistic world when essentially your head is not in
Mm,
this duality. So sometimes I can get worn out by the all the duality. And so things will break down. So like a blender might break. And that might tell me that I'm just spinning too much, like I'm just trying to do too many things. I remember sitting at a light and all of a sudden my brakes started smoking in my car. And I was like,
mm,
okay, this is a sign. And little things like that. So electronics now become a symbol for me, like what needs to be fixed in my body.
mhm,
Um, and I never have to fix my cars or my electronics.
mm,
So I just have to figure out what's misaligned in me, and then the car fixes. It's
mm.
really kind of cool.
Wow. Wow.
Or the blender fixes, or so when things break, I don't ever throw them out. I'm like, okay, I gotta look at what's not working
Yeah.
in me. And then that sign fixes. So it's kind of cool.
That's amazing. It's also speaks to what we're learning about the the fabric of reality and how the reality comes from here first and then goes out. That's so amazing. Now, I know I've taken up a lot of your time and I really appreciate your time. So I know that it's getting a bit late, but I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you feel that, I mean, you've already said it already, that people really need to hear, or that is the main message that you brought back from your experience. If what would that be?
I think the main thing is to understand what I heard at the well. And anytime somebody's having a challenge, and I just say anytime there's disharmony, um, then that's not the real you, right? Because you, without your ego, without that which is not love, you don't worry, you don't fear. There's no, me versus them, no duality. And just say to yourself, it's okay. I'm
Mm,
forgiven and
mm,
I love you.
mm,
Um, and that really does just calm you down. What I learned from each of those experiences and the different places I went, from the tunnel uh, to the well, to the library, and to the table and back, is that I came back, um, and I couldn't cope where I lived, and I couldn't cope with really anything. I sold everything I had,
mm,
and took my car, and I went to the one of the top 10 beaches in the world, and I just lived there. All I did was walk the beach, sunrise and sunset, and write. And so that's where I wrote the book Soar. And I didn't understand when I came back, why is everyone so unhappy
mm,
and conflicted and uncertain of what to do, and wanting all these things. And so I studied for years, slow learner, I guess. Libraries aren't as good down here, but
mm.
trying to figure out why am I so happy? And everyone seems to be so miserable. Like it really bothered me. And so as I did my research and I lived in different religions, like lived as a Jew, lived as a Hindu, and I lived in all these different religions for 3 months at a time, and thinking that must be it. It's, maybe it's religion. And I went back and got a master's in theology. So I thought that was it. And then that wasn't it. They didn't give me any answers. And somebody else said, oh, it's physics. I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I go and get a PhD in advanced theoretical physics, and that wasn't it. Um, so I created, I figured out the formula, narrowed it down like Occam's razor, right? Narrow everything down to the least common elements, nothing less, nothing more. And I found out there's four things that cause people this disharmony, right? And if you can figure out which of the four is your block, and then you can apply the antidote, right? And so SOAR is the acronym for what's wrong with um, the behavior that's causing us disharmony. And so the S is separation, right? It's a separation from what we want and what we have, right? Like, I really want $1 million and I only have 50,000, right? I really want to be married and I'm in a horrible relationship or nobody will call me. So this separation between what we want and what we have, that duality is a great stressor for people. The second thing is the O. I think this is one of the biggest problems we're facing in the world today. And the O is outsourcing, where we wake up in the morning and we grab our phone and we do the doom scroll and we see what other people are doing on social media. Outsourcing is just like with a company where they outsource their labor to other countries because it's cheaper, right? But what people are doing is we're outsourcing our validation and approval of others, and we're looking outside to everybody else. Is this okay? Is this good? Are we all doing this? Right? And we fall into this collective consciousness rather than our own identity. And we need other people to say you're good enough, right? That's not really good. And so that causes a lot of disharmony. The third behavior is attachment. And so this can be attached to a person in a relationship. Oh my God, I have to be with this person. Or some people get attached to habits that are unhealthy. Could be addicted to the internet. Maybe they're addicted to shopping. They could be addicted to alcohol or pills or food. And we have a very attached, addicted society. Like it has to go this way, or this is the only thing that works. I've always done it this way, and they're attached to those things. So
Mm,
that's the third behavior that people can fall in. And then the fourth one is reversion, and that's going backwards, always being in the past. It's like the high school basketball player that still can't get over that, right? He's no longer a star high school basketball player or school cheerleader, right? Um, and they can't move on from I was once this, or this person hurt me. A lot of people do this to this day, and they're stuck on, yeah, but I lost everything in 2008 in the mortgage crisis, or yeah, but when COVID happened, right? Yeah, people, that was 5 years ago. And or you know, it was this, and or I once lost all my money doing this, and I will never have a partner again. They're so
mm,
stuck in everything
mhm,
back there, and they haven't let it go, and it can move forward, and that's tough because that's really where the ego lives, is in the past. And so anytime people who are in the past, if they think about the future, it's just a projection of their past. And so it's never looking good. So the
mm,
thing that I tell people is you just need to understand what is blocking you. If you know you're blocked, then you know the antidote. So those are the four behaviors. And after 12 years, every little problem that people had, I was able to bucket them into those four categories. And in the years since, nothing ever falls outside of that. And we have questions that you can ask, like, hey, is it S? Is it O? Is it A? Is it R? Okay. And um, for your readers or watchers or listeners, um, you know, everybody can get a copy of the SOAR formula and see the charts and the graphs. Um,
mhm,
and it's all in the book. And so the first thing is to figure out what is blocking you, right?
mhm,
Um, and if is it S? Is it separation? Is it outsourcing? Are you in attachment, or are you in reversion and always stuck in the past? And you can think about what is that thing and like, okay, this is definitely separation, or okay, I'm definitely stuck in the past. So that awareness, all change happens in awareness, right?
Mhm.
And so awareness is what I call in the book, the miracle field, where there is no duality. And if you can rise up to that level and just constantly stay in a state of awareness, then there is no other side, right? There is no
Mhm.
bad thing happening, another shoe dropping or whatever. And change happens in the state of awareness. And that's how you can get out of this duality trap that everybody is in.
Wow, I have to say that um, my wife Sanami has read your book and she just raves about it. She's been narrating it to me. So, oh, you gotta listen to this part, and then she's been, and it's really inspired her a lot. So I definitely want to influence people to read your book. And then our neighbor came by the other day because Sanami had to leave and needed someone to watch our kids for a little bit. And so she happened to pick up your book and start reading it, and she's like, this book is really interesting, and she's like, oh, let's take it, go, take it home. She took it home and she read it, and she came back the next day and she's like, felt like her life had shifted after reading your book.
Oh,
So it was really impactful. So I want everyone to really, it's a really important book to read. I haven't read it yet. I've just seen the effects on people's lives of it. So
well,
um,
I love it.
yes, and I just want to thank you so much for your story and for being here and for being open and just for your work that you're doing. And we're gonna be working together. I'm really excited about that. Um, and for those who are interested in hiring Connie to speak at an event or work with her privately, can take your business to another level. You can go from 6 to 7 figures. Visit uh, KoniScavella.com, KoniScavella.com, theiconicentrepreneur.com, or meetconnie.com. Connie always with the Koni. And
Yeah.
you can get her book on Amazon or Audible, or go to ConnieScavella.net. And don't forget to listen to her podcast at KoniScavella.org. And again, thank you so much for being
I
here.
I would love to give everybody something free if that's okay.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so the chart of SOAR, it's in the book, and I have a whole bunch of free resources in there. Um, if you get the book as well. But you also have a couple free chapters in there that you can read too. So if you go to Connie Scavella, what is it, /bonus, um, that will give you free access to all the resources that we have in the book and the charts, and you can see the 4 blocks that people have, and then the 4 solutions, the SOAR solutions, and what question you can ask. You only have to ask one question to see which which block you have, the S, the O, the A, or the R.
Mm.
And we talk about this a lot. You can find me all over the internet, on Facebook, Connie Scavella, or YouTube at Connie Scavella, and we talk about this topic a lot. And on our podcast, you can find me reading chapters, but the book is available any way you want it, as a download or as a physical book or Audible. So whatever version people like.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that gift. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone's going to be so happy to receive that.
absolutely. And I wish you great love and continued success on your podcast.
Thank
And
you.
can't wait to watch it grow.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, you just showed up.
Oh, look who's here. Who is this young man? Hi.
This is Kiani.
Hi,
And
Candy.
he's ready for his bath. Well, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we'll I again thank you. And what is this? And and hopefully we'll have you on again at a minute.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Have a great day.
You as well.
Okay, bye-bye.